So is the slides visible?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So very good afternoon once again to all. And as sir has explained, my today's topic will be on multi-equation time series models, where I will be basically focusing on VAR, vector autoregressive model, and then multivariate Karch. So these are the outline for today's presentation. I will be briefly covering the VAR model and then MGARCH model, then followed by illustration, which will be my basic aim, so that you all can, when you have a data set in hand, which is of multivariate in nature, so that you can fit it in R and then you can interpret the results, and followed by a few references. So before going into directly into the topic, so these are, brief regarding time series. So any observation when we collect over a period of time is said to be a time series data. The most important factor here is that the the interval, the time interval on which a particular data is observed or it is taken into consideration has to be uniform. So which means you can collect it over minutes, over hours, over weeks, over days, over months, but whatever it is, the interval has to be the same. Okay, so that is very important. We cannot have a data set which has different time interval to analyze. So, and what important here in time series, area of time series forecasting, is that we try to identify the data generating mechanism by the data itself. Okay, and then after once that is identified, the mechanism how the data has been generated, it is identified, then we go for forecasting, which means we are trying to predict our future values based on whatever models we have developed or whatever the system of data generation we could identify. Now, this system, the data set that we have in hand, whatever we collect in time series, can be modeled or can be explained in two different broad classes. One is the linear and the other one being the non-linear. So the linear portion covers a very popular ARIMA class of models, and which has been taught to you. And the non-linear portion, there are variety of models, but basically what has been taught is, I think it is the Karch class of model, so which was taught to you all. So today we will be covering in this class, we will be covering both the models, the linear and the non-linear models. But the fact is that we will be doing it in the multivariate. We'll see how these are transformed into multivariate framework. Okay. So as I was talking, time series analysis, if we further classify it broadly on basis of phenomenon or the observations or the series that we have in hand, can be classified into two ways. One is the univariate, where we deal with one single variable of interest, and the other is a multivariate, when we have more than one variable of interest. So in case of univariate, ARIMA, ARCH or the Karch class of model are very useful. And in case of multivariate, there are lots and lots of model, but we will be focusing mainly on VAR and the multivariate extension of ARCH, or we can say the multivariate extension of Karch model. So when we were dealing with univariate case, we were having one time series data. Suppose we have a time series data of price or production, data of particular crop. Then why was it required that we thought of that when we we need to go into the multivariate framework, and when we say it to be a multivariate framework or multivariate time series analysis, the thing is that when we try to model one or more than, or when we try to model more than one time series together, it is said to be as vector or multivariate time series analysis. This explores the relationship between the time series or whatever we have taken and examines the structure responsible for the dynamic moment. So whenever we consider more than one observation, what comes to us is their dynamic moment. Okay, If you have more than one series, when we deal with one single series, we try to explore whatever properties are there within that particular series. But when we have more than one series, suppose we are trying to see the prices of, suppose let us take the price of onion. Okay, price of onion in two different markets. Suppose in market A or market, we can say Delhi, Calcutta, Delhi, Bombay, Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, whatever it is. Or within Delhi also, we can take different markets, or within one particular city also different markets. So when there are such variables of interest, when we want to model such things together, then we go for multivariate framework. And in that multivariate framework, when we have more than one series, so there will be some sort of dependencies, to be explored between the two cities, between the prices of onion in market of Kolkata and Delhi, or in Delhi in Bangalore. So all those things being taken care of. So then this dynamic movement, so the movement, whatever is there between the two cities, is taken care of. Okay. And these things, as I've already said, that the major reasons for modeling and analyzing our multivariate, multiple time series together is to understand, very importantly, is the dynamic relationship among the different time series components. And of course, what we aim in time series, the basic aim in time series is to firstly to understand and then to predict our future values. So the second important thing is to improve the accuracy of forecast of one particular series by utilizing the additional information that can be explained to it by the other series which is dependent upon it. Okay. So in multivariate time series models, in time series forecasting models, there are various models, but after the pioneering work of Sims in the year 1980, who proposed the vector autoregressive model, these models have become very popular among the correlated series. See, when we want to explore the relationship between the two series, so basically the series needs to have some relationship, which means they need to be correlated. Okay, I cannot randomly, the thing is to be understood here is that I cannot randomly pick up some, series, multivariates, one series from one price series, or one series randomly from a place, and another series randomly from another place, which are logically, or we don't have any logic, so that they are correlated among themselves. So we cannot go for this particular multivariate time series framework. Of course, when you run a program, you are in R or in eViews or in any other standard statistical software packages, it will give you some output, but that will not be meaningful. So we have to understand that whatever data set we are trying to, time series data set, we are trying to put it into a multivariate framework. It is very important for us to understand that they are logical. They are logical and they have some meaning in it. Okay. So in that sequence, the yesterday class you have heard, probably in yesterday's or day before yesterday class, you have heard regarding, you have learned regarding the ARIMA model, which is a linear class of model which models the mean of that particular time series. So this VAR is also a linear model, but in the multivariate framework, very special. That is only the autoregressive portion is taken care of in multivariate framework. So it is a linear model, and that is why the correlation structure among all the correlated series has to be there. The series has to, whatever series you take into account, has to have some correlation among them, and that correlation should not be absurd. It should be logical. You should have some logical background to explain it, and then only we can go around with, applying this VAR model. Okay. And VAR model is so far is said to be one of the most successful and easy to use model for analysis of multivariate time series data. This is also due to a fact because it does not take into account the error term, that is the moving average. You might have been knowing in ARIMA, the moving average, whenever the error term is taken into equation, the equation becomes complicated. That is why this VAR model, which takes care only of the autoregressive part, becomes easy to, it is very successful and it is easy for using. Okay. As it is already said that it is an extension of univariate autoregressive AR model to multivariate framework or multivariate time series data. And agricultural data series, uh, there are no exceptions, as in case of financial series also. They exhibit correlation among themselves, and they have a tendency to move together. Suppose, for example, if you take that, as I was talking in in the beginning, the prices of particular commodity, I talked about onion. Onion prices of at different places, at different cities, or even within a city in different markets. If you analyze it in economic perspectives, in perspective of economics, in perspectives of your marketing perspectives, you can understand that the prices of one particular market are related to the prices of the neighboring markets, or the demand supply chain, or from where the the producing state and the consumer state, this all these factors are taken into account. So whenever we try to formulate and we try to understand the dynamic movement among the series, we go with logic, that we need to take only those series that has some logic, and then if a correlation exists among themselves, so we can explore them, we can better explore them, explain them, understand them, and then improve our forecasting efficiency. Okay. And this I have already said that it is applied to with auto serially quoted, and this model captures the linear interdependency among the multiple time series. So this is very important, because it is just an extension of autoregressive model, which is a linear model. So that is why it will capture only the linear interdependency, that is the correlation, any type of correlation that is present in it. It will not help us in any type of non-linear structure that might be present in the data set, but this var model will not be able to capture all this. Okay. And as it is especially used for describing the dynamic behavior of economic and financial time series. Having said all this, that if you have a time series data, multivariate time series data, which you have collected over the time, which has some meaning, logic into it, and you want to explore its properties, how it's dynamic, how they are interdependent and all. And for that, var model is very successful, easy to use, but there is a problem in it. The var model has a problem, which suffers from the problem of multicollinearity and overfitting. So because, as you all be seeing, that we consider only those series, those are correlated. So when we try to consider a series, those are correlated. The problem of this multicollinearity in a regression framework, when YT, one particular variable, is auto regressed upon its lags, and of course in the lags of the other variable, this problem of multicollinearity creeps in. It automatically creeps in. And also the problem of overfitting also is there. So while fitting, while using this var model, we have to be very conscious that how many number of lags are to be taken. So that is a very important thing that you should understand, that we have to take care of. And I hope in the last class also sir was talking regarding all this, that when you try to select your models, these AIC, BIC criteria and all those assumptions of errors are to be fulfilled. So all those things all do apply here also. Whatever has been whatever you all know regarding a linear time series in case of ARIMA or GARCH, all those concepts apply here also, if with respect to the error, with respect to your AIC, BIC criteria for selecting of the model. Okay, but unfortunately, with all these advantages, this model comes with a disadvantage of multicollinearity and overfitting. So to do away with this problem of multicollinearity and overfitting, and to further improve the var model, the Bayesian approach, Bayesian is another way of estimating parameters of a model. So this Bayesian approach was advocated by Litterman in the year 1986, and it was mainly due to giving a solution of overfitting. Okay, we will not delve into the details of it, but I'm just wanted you to know that this has a problem, and the solution to it is a well established in literature is a Bayesian approach to it. Okay. So if you have any questions till here, you can please ask. Okay. If nothing such, then I will, this is just a brief description of the VAR model.
Hello,
Okay.
sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Sir, as you said, that the two series should be correlated.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To apply for this where model.
Yes.
So if for example, you said about the prices in two markets are correlated. That's true.
Okay. Yeah.
But the price is single variable actually. If we take the onion price in Bangalore market with Hubli market, so both are only one variable. Price is only one variable. So can we say that it is a two multivariate?
Yes. Yeah. Price is a single variable, but you are taking across the markets. Fine.
Okay, sir.
Your data frame will be price of onion, but of univariate, what we do is we take price of onion of, suppose you are talking about Kolkata market. Suppose. Okay, that is what we analyze. We analyze this pattern and we try to see how, what model can fit, and we try to forecast only that particular for Kolkata market. Fine. But as you are telling that, as when I'm saying that price of one market and the price of other market, so now you have two variables, market one and market two.
Yes, sir.
Now you find the correlation. Is it logical? First of all, as I said, it has to be logical. You have to give some logic to it. Okay. They are maybe economics. They are producing, consuming. All those factors are to be taken into consideration. Their market are, how are they influenced? If it is so, you find the correlation. If they are correlated, now what we do is, now we try to fit market A with it itself and also with market B, and try to see how market B is influencing market A, the prices of market A, and vice versa. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, still I have one more. I want one more clarification.
Please go ahead.
If we take the example of complementary goods like coffee and milk, or sugar and coffee.
Okay.
So if we take the time series of maybe series of coffee and time series of the price of sugar or milk, whatever it will be.
Okay.
So for me, I think this price of coffee and price of milk or price of sugar, it as a different variables. But if I will, for me, if I will take the price of single commodity in different market, I'm not sure whether it can be called multivariable. I'm not sure, sir. But I have doubt, so I asked.
No, it is multivariate. Anything, listen, anything. See, don't confuse here. Anything when you are trying to analyze, okay. Single variable over different places, okay.
Yes, okay.
Or single or different variables, as you said, price of coffee, price of milk, price of sugar. Okay, fine. That is also a multivariate framework. You can take that, but as I was giving you example, one particular price, one particular commodity price across different market.
Okay,
that is also multivariate. The concept here is when you are trying to analyze more than one time series variable at a go. It need not to be of different commodity. It can be of same commodity but of different markets. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So don't confuse them.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll proceed. This is a simple, typical VAR P model. When a P is the, the number of, lags that it goes. As I said, here YT is, regressed upon YT minus 1, YT minus 2 up to P number of lags with particular error term, and this T turns from 1 to N. And the assumptions of error here is normal 0, variance covariance matrix sigma. It is not sigma. It is not sigma square. Okay, as in case of univariate, because there was only one variable, so we had only sigma square. But in this case of when we have more than one variable, it becomes a matrix. Okay, matrix of variance. It becomes a variance covariance matrix. Variance of one first variable, variance of second variable, and then the covariance between the two variables. To make it more simpler in regression framework, if we consider all this the first intercept term A, and then it is taken as to be 1, and then the lags upon which this variable is dependent is defined as xt, and we consider the beta as the vector of all the coefficients, that is constant term or the intercept term, and then beta 1, beta 2, and so on, then up to lag number p, the p number of variables. So it can be written as in this form, which you can say y is equal to beta yt is equal to beta xt plus the error term et, and here of course the error term follows the assumptions as discussed above. Okay, it is nothing but your simple autoregressive model in a multivariate framework. Here yt's are more than 1. So to give a better look to it, to understand it further, let us take simple case. The most simple case that can be is a 2 variable case, where we have 2 variables. Here k is equal to 2, we have 2 variables, and we are trying to depict this var model in one particular lag, which means the dependency of the yt, y1 and y2. Yt is of course the matrix of the variable that we have, within which we have 2 variables, that is y1 and y2. T is the time period upon which the the values are recorded. It will vary, of course. T will vary from 1 to n, and n number of, or as you define, 1 to capital T, 1 to n, whatever is the range of it, whatever the data set we have in hand, it depends upon that. So in the simplest case, you can see we have the coefficients, of course, the intercept term or the constant term, as you call it, a1 and a2, and then these are my beta coefficients, which are associated with the lags. The first lag, because yt is dependent upon yt minus 1, because we have only one lag. Here dependency of lag p is 1, which means my y1 will depend upon the previous lag, and it will also depend upon the lag of y2. Okay, so this is the dependency. So this is where the dynamic character, or the the information of the second series is being taken into the information of the first series. Similarly, for the second variable, it will get regressed upon its first lag, as well as upon the lag of the other value, that is y1. Y2 will get regressed upon so y2 t minus 1 and with y1 t minus 1. So in total we will have for this coefficient matrix. Of course, for each equation, so out of here we will have two equations. One equation for the first variable y1, how is y1 dependent upon yt minus 1, plus the second variable y2 t minus 1, and then the error term for the first variable, and for the first equation, and how y2 is dependent upon y2 t minus 1, and then y2 is dependent upon y1 t minus 1, and then its error term. So we are having 2 equations. Okay, so as the number of variables increases, this will keep on increasing, and as the number of lags increases, the equation becomes more and more. So the problem of overfitting comes into picture here, because when we try to fit the number of observations, and when we try to keep on increasing the number of lags, the structure becomes more and more complex. The correlation among them becomes more and more, the problem of multi-coherentity creeps in, and then the system becomes very hard to estimate through OLS. Okay, so that is why probably in yesterday's class, sir was also talking regarding the parsimony, the concept of parsimony, where we need to keep a cutoff between the the amount of accuracy we want in the model and the number of parameters to be estimated. Okay, so that was all in very brief regarding var model. So if you have any question into it, you can please ask. Okay. So if there are no questions, so I have outlined few steps how we can analyze a multivariate time series model using var. Okay, this var technique. So it's very important for us that the stationarity of time series is very important, as you all have gone through in case of ARIMA model also. So we need to have a time series which is stationary. So there are a lot. So there are in all standard statistical packages, there are tests like ADF, DF, Dickey-Fuller, augmented Dickey-Fuller, and then KPSS and PP, that is Phillips Ferron test, are available. We go through this test. The first step is when we have a time series, individually we test that whether these time series are that the observations are stationary or not. And if they are not stationary, we need to defend them and we need to make them stationary. Once the series is once the series is stationary, then we need to go for identifying the mean model, that is the VAR model. Okay, the linear, that is the mean model and VAR model, and these are done on basis of our minimum AIC SBC criteria. Okay, as discussed in case of ARIMA also, the models with minimum which has a value of minimum AIC Akaike information criteria or Schwartz Bayesian criteria, we take those models into consideration. Of course, once this models are selected, and then the parameter estimation of this models are done, it is very important for us to see that these models that we select among this with minimum AIC and BIC values and all, it is very important that all the parameters of the model should be statistically significant at 5% level of significance. Okay, they have to be significant. If any of the model is maybe a one particular model, suppose X has a minimum AIC or BIC value, but its parameters are not significant, all its parameters are not significant, statistically not significant, we will not consider that particular model. Okay, if all these things are done, we have a model which with all its parameters are statistically significant of the model. It has low AIC BIC as compared to other models which has all the parameters significant. Then comes the residual diagnostic analysis, which is very important. Then we go for the residual analysis of the model. There are various things that can be done, that we can look into the ACF plots of the residuals to see that whether the residuals are serially correlated or not, do they have a serial correlation among them or not. We go for QQ plots, where we see that whether the assumption of normality is satisfied or not, or we have Portmanteau test for residual Q statistics that has been talked about in the last class, I guess. And then if these things are, if we have a model with minimum AIC BIC value with all these parameters significant and its residuals behaving properly, which is a white noise, which is within the prescribed the assumptions, then we consider that model for further forecasting purpose. If the residual diagnostic fail, we need to go back to step 2, that is identification of the mean model. Again, we have done something or the other wrong, whatever model we have taken, it is not up to the mark, so we need to go back to step 2, that is identification. Again, we need to start from identification. Okay, after all this these things are done, then only finally you can forecast using that particular model, and then we can compare them. There are different measures of statistical comparison. I have just named 2, that is RMEC and mean absolute error. These are standard things that you will get in literature. There are MAP, we use MAD, mean absolute deviation, mean absolute percentage error. There are other statistics also used. So there are various statistics that are used to see the forecasting efficiency of the model. Okay, so the things that you should be very clear is that these statistics, RMEC, MAP, MAE, MAD, or there are many others, these all are to see the forecasting efficiency of the model. And this AIC, SBC, these are to select a particular model. Okay, and the significance of the model parameters, the residual diagnostics, the AIC and BIC values are all these are criteria for selection of the model. And once the models are selected, few models are selected to compare among them with respect to the forecasting efficiency or accuracy, these statistics are used. Okay, RMEC, MAP, and all the standard statistics that are there in literature are used. Okay, so any question till here? Okay, So if there is no question, so I'll move on. In var, what more important thing, I'll be just very brief in this. In case of var model, it not only helps us to model and forecast the multivariate systems, the multivariate time series that we have in hand, but it also gives us a very important information which is said to be impulse response function. Okay, it gives us that impulse response, which means that how my variable x, variable x is being influenced by the other variable under study. Okay, which means that if there is a change in one particular variable, suppose x, variable x, how it is being affected by that change is affecting the other variable. That impulse we can get. So that response, how the change in one variable is affecting the response of the other variable, that particular plot, that particular function, or that particular graph also can be extracted from this var model. So it helps us to understand the magnitude of the impact of change in one variable upon the change in the other variable that is there within the system. Okay, so I will not go much into deeper details of all this. I'm just skipping it. So Gragnac, Granger casualty and all these things are there. It will be considered probably in the next class when it will be taken on co-integration analysis. Okay, so this was all in very brief regarding var model. Okay, now as I said in my in the first slide that we will be going for some brief description about the multivariate Kac model also. So the concept here is also same. In case of univariate time series, when you apply ARIMA model and identify the mean of the model, the mean equation of the model, then we test its residuals. Okay, residual diagnostics are done. And in that residual diagnostics, if we see that the residuals are not, white noise, they have some, the square of the residuals, whatever it is, the square of the residual show some pattern. It has some arch effect in it. We have some arch, we go for arch LM test, and if you find positive, then we go for arch or Kac model, whichever model is suitable. Similar here also. In this case also, when we have a multivariate time series, at first to identify the mean model, we go for var. We identify the var, we go for residual diagnostics of the var, then we go for and then in that, if we find there are some spikes, significant spikes in the square of the residuals in the ACF and the PCF plots, then we test in that particular lags, we go for multivariate, arch test, and we see that is there, this arch effect as was present in the univariate case, is it present in the multivariate case or not? If it is present in the multivariate case, then we further go for multivariate arch or multivariate Kac model, whatever is suitable for that particular data set in hand. Okay. So this HT in Kac model, it was a small HT. You all will be familiar with that particular notation. This is again the conditional variance of YT, means the main model, the main variable that we have in our hand. That definition does not change. In multivariate case, the definition that was there in the univariate case does not change, but what changes here is the dimension. We are adding much to it. Okay, in that case, we had one particular variable. Now it becomes more variable. So the variance covariance matrix becomes larger and complex. Okay. So the very, the most common and the simplest expansion of Kac into a multivariate framework is BEKK model. Okay, this BEKK model is named after the the authors or the researchers that they have found it. They have they have documented it. This is Baba, Angel, Corner, and Kraft. Okay, so BEKK model. So what they say is for in case of BEKK model, this is the variance covariance matrix structure for if you have just 3 variables in case. So this is 3 by 3. We have 3 variables. So you can see in the diagonal in this diagonal, you can see the H11 is the, the conditional variance for first variable, H22 is for the second, H33 is for the third. Okay, for the 3 variable case, third variable, and 1 2 is with 1 and 2, 1 3 is with 1 and 3. Similarly, 2 3 with 2 and 3, and so, and 3 2 and 3 1, as it goes with variable third observation with the second observation, third observation with the first observation, and so on. So here, instead of one particular variance, what is happening is the dependency, the dynamic movement that I was talking about is being, it's being given up. Okay, is being transferred from what is the effect of variable 1, the Garch effect, or the volatility effect, if there is present in it, from variable 1 to variable 2, and similarly with variable 1 to variable 3, then with variable 2 with variable 3. So in this way, this is captured. Okay, and the assumptions for error remains the same, and you can see this coefficient has to be greater than or equal to 0, and as in case of Garch model, it was said that alpha plus beta, the Arch plus Garch coefficient, has to be less than 1. So these assumptions do not change. Okay, the assumptions do not change, but due to the multivariate in nature, this matrix becomes larger, where we have the covariance or the cross product of between the two particular variables or the time series that is there in our hand. Okay, to make it in a simpler way, so this is the matrix. So I will be not talking much upon all this, interested into the details of it, but just to give you a look that this is how this things are written, okay, in BEKK framework. And then another another variant of this multivariate Garch model is CCC. We say to be constant conditional correlation. Okay, where this our HT, this conditional variance, is defined by this term in this fashion, in where this dt are the diagonal elements of the the conditional variance obtained among the variables h11, h12, 22, 33, 44, 55 until kk, whatever, and this R is a symmetric positive definite matrix whose elements are constant. That is the conditional correlation. Here we say to be constant. That is why it is constant conditional correlation model. Okay, MGARCH constant conditional model, and this conditional variance is specified as we specify in univariate Garch. So the the base of this multivariate extension is our univariate Garch model, upon which these things are done. In the first model, we were not talking about correlation structure. Here we were just talking regarding the movements, the spillover movement of the volatility movement, which is spilled from one variable to the other, one time series to other, and to then to other, and their combination of it. Here the correlation is the term correlation has come into picture, where we say that this correlation that is present among this, we are not only talking about the volatility spillover, but we are also talking regarding the correlation structure that was present, that is present among them, is there. But here we are saying it to be constant. That correlation is constant throughout the model. It is not time dependent. It is time independent. It does not depend upon time. Okay, so you do not find the t here. It is constant. We give it a one particular structure, that this can be the R, this can be our conditional correlation, and which will be valid throughout the series. But in a practical scenario, this model does not make much sense. It is simple, but it does not make any sense, because when the variables are changing, the values of the variables are changing with time, the volatility or the the price action or the dynamic actions are changing with respect to time. At different time we have different values, and the equation becomes dynamic. So keeping that conditional correlation constant does not have much sense in our day-to-day, in our real life examples or real life data set. So that is why this DCC model was given in this came into picture, which allowed this conditional conditional correlation. This conditional correlation also to be dynamic with respect to time. So this is how these things are, these equations are written. I will not go much into it because in all standard statistical softwares, you will understand, you will get all this, easy codes available. You can run them. But what is important for you to understand is when you run a CCC model, MGAT CCC model, you will get one particular conditional correlation value which is constant throughout the series. And when you go for DCC model, you will get a dynamic value. Those values are dynamic and it changes with respect to time, and you can plot them also. You will get a very beautiful plot which will show you that how these values are, over time, they are, moving over time with rest, and also the volatility movement plot. The volatility movement plot also, and you can see how they are moving. Okay. So estimation is through likelihood. This is also, of course, automatically done in all the standard software packages. This is just to show you that this is how the equation looks, and this density and all are given, and these are the set of parameters that needs to be estimated. Okay, so I'll not go much more here. And if you have any questions till now, please feel free to ask. If you want me to repeat any of the concept, please feel free to ask. I will be happy to do that.
Yeah, it's okay, sir.
Okay. So before going into illustration, I will just try to wrap up this, that if you have a multivariate time series data in your hand and you want to estimate the mean model, the most easy, the most flexible one is the VAR model. We go for the VAR model. There are few steps that need to be followed for the VAR model. Those steps are to be followed. Once those are done, you forecast it, and then you go for then residual diagnostics. If you find there is a suspicion, if you find that the residuals do not come within, or the residuals do not follow the predefined assumptions that are there for the model, then we go for the square of the residuals and we check if there is any arch effect present or not, multivariate arch effect present or not within that our data set in hand. If that is there, then we go for further modeling that. As in case of univariate, we go for GARCH. In case of multivariate, we go for multivariate GARCH model. So I have shown you 3 variant of multivariate GARCH model. So we have to apply those multivariate GARCH models, and then we model it. And then of course, after modeling it again, the residual diagnostics are done, where you can understand the yes, whatever model you have fit and whatever forecast values you are given are credible. Okay, because the error assumptions are fulfilled. Okay. So for illustration purpose, I have taken a data set, 2 monthly series, namely Arhar and Wood price indices, and this has been taken from the Office of the Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India, and it contains 265 data points from April 1994 to 2016, and the base year being 2004 to 2005. Okay. So this is the data plot. If you look into the plot itself, you can say that yes, this plot has some fluctuations. It has some upward trend, and if you look into the red line of Arhar and blue line of Wood, you can see that of looking visually also you can have an idea that these are moving together. They have a moving upward trend together. Okay, so this is the data plot that I will be illustrating in R using. And I will give you the codes in it. I'll go through the codes, I'll run it, and I'll show it to you. Okay, so this is the data plot that we have. That is the data we have in hand, and these are a few of the references. So whatever analysis or whatever I will be talking about is basically through this paper, that is VAR MGARCH model for volatility modeling of pulse prices that we had published in the journal Society of Agricultural Statistics. So thank you for this part. So I think I'll stop sharing this, and I will move on with R. Okay. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So I hope you all are very till now you all are familiar with this R console, where you get to have unit for everything that you want to run. If you can write your own codes, it is okay. But in R, you have many packages developed for very specific analysis that you do. Okay, so for this particular practical class, we will be requiring a few of the packages, so we call them from the library. If you don't have it, you need to install the packages from these packages and install packages from this option. You add down your package name, and then you need to install the packages. But for the sake of the practical class, I have downloaded, installed it all the packages in my console. So the packages that we basically need is vars for fitting var model, and then T series, RU cards, F cards, F basics. So these are the packages that I will be needing. And for multivariate time series, the library MTS, multivariate time series library, or the multivariate time series package is to be called. Okay. So these are the packages. So you have to, so what we do is we simply select them, select all, and we run them. So these packages are loaded. Okay. Of course, I hope you know that if there is any error in our this screen here, the red error sign will come. So the error message will pop up. So in that case, you can see, okay, that there is some error here. Just zooming it in so that you can see it further. Okay, after loading the packages, I'll just do Control L so that I get my console to be cleared. So after loading the package, the next important thing is I need to, uh, import my data set. So there are various ways of importing the data set into my system. One is from import data set here. Okay, from Excel, SPSS, SAS, data, text file, anything you have, you can click from here. From Excel, if you click, you open, this browser will open, you can browse, and whatever data set you have, you can do that. The other one is set WD, that is set working directory. For me, for all of you, I would like to suggest that while working in R or any programming language, you have that you are versatile with, comfortable with. I feel that setting working directory helps you a lot, because whatever modifications you do, whatever data you want to import, whatever data you want to save, if you whatever plots that you create, you want to save them, anything you want to export from your output to your PC in one particular folder. So if you have set that working directory, it becomes very easy. Whatever changes you make, whatever you do, it gets directly saved and stored there. So you need not to search here and there. Okay. So for ease of doing all this, so I feel that set WD, setting your working directory, is very essential. Okay. So you can set this directory using the command set WD. So I'll run it. So working directory is set. Here I have a file in my name. I've kept it. So, and I'll save into data. So it is data read.table, whatever is there. Yeah, and in that file, and it is a text file. So the extension is .txt, and I have some header in it. So header is equal to true. Okay. I run it. So here I hope you can see data is visible. So if you want to see few observations, how the data is, you can write head, the name of the data, it comes. And if you want to view the data set, you can simply click here. So data is view. So I have two values. I have given them X and Y. The name of the values X and Y. Okay. So it is I have 313 observations. You can see from the details here with two variables. Okay, I have not taken intentionally, I have not taken more than two variables. Here you can, this is the simplest way how to explain to you. Okay, so I'm not showing you the how to convert it into time series and all those has been covered in the last class. Okay, so as because I have two observations and I have named them X and named them Y, so I will pick up. So if I want to pick up the first column with all the observations, so this is the code. I write data, okay, within columns I give a comma, which means all the observations, all the rows are taken, but only the first column is to be taken up. So X represents that. So you have now X, which is a numerical value, and it has 1 to 313 observations. Similarly for Y, this the same syntax. Comma means it'll take all the rows, and when you give 2, it will take the second column. Okay, and you run it. This code comes handy when you have you want to split a particular data set you have in hand. Suppose out of these 313 observations, you don't want to work on last 10 observations or last 5 observations. Okay, so you can, or you just want first 50 observations. You may have a data set where you want to work only on first 50 observations, and you want to work on all the columns. You have suppose 10 columns, we have 10 variables. You want to work on all the variables, but only first 50 observations. So in that case, what you can do is you can write like this is, suppose I'm just giving an example, is you can write is you can write to be data. Okay, here you can define it to be 1:50 if you want to work on just 50 observations, and I give comma both the values. Okay, so now see what happens here. Z is created. Okay, extra variable Z is created which has 50 observations and 2 variables, because I have said all the columns are present. I have only 2 columns here. So if you look here, you have 50 number of observations. The first 50 observations are taken, and then the others are ignored. So this code comes handy if you have, if you want to work on few selected variables, or you can within the range of variables. Of course, in column wise or in row wise also within a particular range, first 50, first 100, first 200. So you can work. So before, okay, so this is the code that you can use it for doing that. And now after that, I said that correlation among the series has to be there, has to be present. So in R, the very simple code is core, which means correlation between the two value X and Y. I simply write core X and Y. Okay, let me clean this. I simply run this, so I get the value of correlation. If you see, the correlation is 0.846. Okay, it's 0.85. So it has positive correlation. It was, of course, a good amount of correlation. Okay, so it was evident from the time plot also. Visually also we could see that the increasing trend, they had some increasing trend which was common among them, and they were moving together in a particular trend. So this is done by the correlation also. So as I said very before, that we need to see that the variables are the two series are correlated or not. Okay, so we have seen the correlation. This is what we have. And now the next is we have to see whether these variables are stationary or not before fitting a bar model. If it is not stationary, we need to make them stationary. So I am using here adf.test upon the adf test upon the variable X. So this variable X is there. So augmented decay Fuller test, my alternate hypothesis is stationary, and my p value is 0. This p value, this probability value is 0.410. So can any one of you tell me that what should I do here? Is my series stationary or not?
Stationary.
Yeah?
Non-stationary, sir.
Non-stationary. Okay. Why?
P value is more than 0.01.
Okay, okay. So my null hypothesis is accepted or rejected?
Do not reject it. Not rejected.
Accepted.
It is accepted. We have no evidence to reject our null hypothesis. Okay. So similarly for Y, here also, so p value is 0.07. So we are taking it at 5% level of significance. So here also it is said to be non-stationary. Okay. So if it is non-stationary, so what we do, our next step is we go for differencing. Okay. So x underscore d is equal to diff x means I'm doing differencing, and I'm not mentioning in order, means by default it is first order differencing. The R takes it to be first order differencing. Okay. So I'll difference my series x. So here you can see xd, a series has been found which is a different series. Okay, by the values of itself you can understand, minus 2.05, minus 0.03, minus 0.86. Okay, these values have come up, so we have got a different series. Again, we go for y, and we difference the series y. Okay, similarly yd, the different series has come up. Okay, now what I have to do is I have to go for the ADF test. Okay, so I'll go for ADF dot test, and I have to see x underscore d, whether this is now stationary or not. So my p value is 0.01. So what should I say now? Hello?
Stationary, sir.
Okay, fine. So you all have understood that. So similarly for ADF, for I will do it for y also, which is after first differencing, is it stationary or not? Okay, so I'll do it. So what values I get? I get p value 0.01. Okay, so and it is printed here that it is much smaller than that, but p value 0.01. So I also now confirm that this my values are stationary process. Okay, now after I get my stationary series for both the series, now what I do is I make them into one particular frame. Okay, so I do data dot frame. I take xd, the different series, and yd, also the different series, the differenced series, because those series are stationary upon which we will start working. Okay, so I take these different series and I name them in data underscore d. Okay, so you will be seeing that somewhere I have given is equals to sign, somewhere less than, and a hyphen sign. So this both the sign means the same in R. Okay, as per your convenience you can use anything. This both are assignment operators, the values that you are assigning to particular variable. This okay. So data dot frame I will be doing. So here you will see again, here we have, as because I have, okay, can somebody tell me why data D is 312 and data is 313 observations? Hello.
Sir, one lag is we took one difference. No, sir, we will lose one observation.
Okay, good. Yes. So that is why we are losing one observation due to the differencing that we have done. Okay. So we have 312 number of observations. So now we will be working on those observations. So the code is very simple. You will have to use this function var. Okay. And I am naming keeping as var underscore 1, and I am defining the data type is constant. There are different ways you can use this. I'm not going into details of it. I will suggest you all to go through this package vars, okay, R package vars, and explore, and explore more and more options. Okay, you can, if you can, in this help section also, if you go in this help section, you get this vars, you get this PDF, you get source, you get R code, you get all sorts of information. R is very well documented online, as it is a freeware. You will get many tutorials also in YouTube and all. Okay, so my request to you all is that you kindly explore all the options. Type, there are different types. They've explained it very well. And lag.max I've taken to be 12 because it is a monthly data, so I don't want this my lags, number of lags that I select automatically should not go beyond 12. Okay, and then it is IC is the information criteria upon which I select. I have taken AIC here. There are many other information criteria, Bayesian information criteria, and other information criteria are also there that are available in this particular function. So you can use them. Okay, you can use them and see. But for demonstration purpose, for just for your showing to you all, I have just taken it to be simple, this criteria. So I run it. Okay, I run them and I get this var1. Okay, this model has been saved here. So if you want to see var1 and if you run it, so you get the estimation of it. So this is the model that you have estimated. My first variable was X and the number of lags that it has taken is 2. Okay. So that is why now you are seeing here this equation. Okay. So this is the equation that you can see here. Okay. X is dependent upon his lag 1, y lag of y1, lag of x t minus 2 and y t minus 2 and the constant term. And these are the values. The constant values, the value of the second lag of dependency upon variable y. Okay. Second lag of this and lag of this and lag of this. So if you see here, the dependency of the first variable x, the first series x, is more is 1.38, is the coefficient is more in case of the first one, but when it goes into the second lag, the coefficient turns to be negative. It has negative impact. Similarly for y also, when it is into the, of course, the dependency upon the y values, the values of in the other series is less, 0.07 and 0.03, but this is the dynamic movement, the small amount of movement that the x is being explained by y has come here. Okay, that you can see. And of course, for the first lag, it is positive, and for the second lag, it is negative. In the term 0.03 is the magnitude of it. Okay, but in case of y, you can see here, first lag here also, in case of x, it is less, 0.02. Here also it is in positive. In for y, depending upon his own past lag, is positive and has a magnitude of 1.20, and y depending upon his previous lag, t minus 2 is negative and it is minus 0.01. Okay, minus 0.01, but y depending upon is again upon this previous lag is negative and is the and it is of quantity minus 0.20. Okay, 208 and also and so on. So this is how these two equations are formed. Okay, x being explained by two lags of its own and two lags of y, and y being explained by two lags of itself and of course the two lags of x. So this is how the extra dynamic information that is present between the two series is taken into consideration. Now these values are depending upon the type that I've taken constant, the model, and the information criteria for selecting the appropriate number of lag I have taken it to be AIC. Okay, now it will be very interesting. For the same data set, I will share with you all the same data set, and with the same data set and the same models with different criterias, with different information criteria, you all can explore that how does it change, whether it changes or whether the values or the lags changes or not. Okay, because here lag dot max is 12. I have allowed the system to go up to 12 number of lags and see that how does it work. Okay. Now, as I was talking regarding the impulse response, that IRF impulse response function is very easy. The codes are very easy. IRF, I'll simply run it. So this is the the values of impulse response of y on x. So, and when I plot it, I'm just plotting of impulse of x and response of y. Okay, plot x and how change of x impulse means a change that is triggered by x is being response. How does the y is responding to it? Okay, and if I see here, So you can see it here. Like if you see this graph here, orthogonal response from X. Okay. How is the change in X over the lags? It is changing the values of Y. Okay. So this is there is an altogether a positive change. Okay. Altogether a positive change. So if you want to have vice versa, you can of course change the impulse here Y, and you can response here, you can put it X, and then you can do it. So and then now what is important is that we need to test the residuals. So normality dot test, I will test for the normality assumptions. So when I test for normality assumptions, these are the values of JB test, residuals. So P values, Qness values, kurtosis values. So all these values are there, and P values, you can see them to be, all P values are to be significant. Okay. So null hypothesis of none are accepted. Okay. Okay. All the null hypotheses are rejected. Fine. And of course, now if you want to predict, so whatever model we have fit, if you want to predict, so the formula is very simple, is predict var1, the model that we have developed, and n dot ahead is how many steps ahead you want to predict. Ci is the confidence interval, that what confidence interval you want. So I have taken it to be 95. You can take it to be 90 as you wish, but standard we take it to be 95. So it is Ci is 0.95. The moment I run it, so this is the value you get. So forecast of X for the first equation and the forecast of Y from the second equation, these are the lower plus minus 95% in interval values. Okay. And this is the confidence interval, 95% confidence interval. So these are the forecast, means the mean values, the mean forecast values, the first column, the mean forecast values. These are the lower and the upper confidence interval, plus minus the confidence interval, 95%. Okay. So suppose you want that you feel like you want to export this the total output that you have got, you have to export this. So what we do is we have to save it. Okay. So we save it as forecast var is equal to, sorry, predict, we do it. Okay, so this forecast of variable has been created and it has been saved, and now we do it write dot CSV. This is the option. What you want to write? You want to write this forecast var, okay, double inverted commas, the name of the file that you want to save, forecast var dot write dot CSV. So the extension has to be CSV. The moment I do this, sorry, there are some issues with directly exporting it. So let me check forecast var as X and Y. Okay. So forecast var, I have to give a $sign and I have to, excuse me, it has forecast of it. So this has been saved. Okay, because this has the forecasted values of X and Y. Okay, so accordingly you have to see that there are some formats which cannot be directly copied. So this is one such. So we have to copy this forecasted values, and the file forecast var.csv, this file has been created and it has been saved where? It has been saved in my working directory, that is I have kept here desktop. So whenever I share my desktop screen, you will be able to see that a file, CSV file has been created where forecast var is there. Okay, so this is how you, if you want to export something from your R console directly to the PC, you can do that. Okay, and of course then what we do is we have to test for the serial correlation also. So this serial correlation test is done, and here also again p value is 0.0016. So can anybody tell me null hypothesis is accepted or rejected? Bit louder.
Rejected, sir.
Rejection of null.
I'm accepting it or do I am rejecting it?
Rejecting, sir.
Okay, good. So that means these concepts are clear to you all. Very good. So if I want to see further the results, all the var results. So var1, and I give a dollar sign. See in R, what is interesting is, you give a dollar sign, you get so many options. All the options that are available in the function, that developer, everybody, the one who develops a packages gives various options to his user to view, to use. Okay, so there are various options, type, p, k, observations, and all those, but I'm just showing you var results. So it is up to you to explore all these options. So you go through the PDF of this package and you can explore all these options. Okay, so var1, var result. So if you click here again, the same thing that I had shown you before regarding the coefficients. So this will also show you the coefficients, but here what is that? It is giving you, this is how it has done. Okay, so you can see it. This for X it has done, and for Y this LM, the linear model, this particular equation has been run. Simple. Okay, it gives you some idea. Now further, for multivariate, because for normality assumptions it was not valid, the var results were not valid. For auto correlations also, it had shown some auto correlations present in the residuals. The residuals were also not normal. So now we further move on to test that is there any, in the data set, is there any multivariate arch effect. For that we need library MTS. Okay, and MTS, and now this march test data lag is equal to 12 I give, and this is what I get, a simple test for testing the arch LM effect. So you all will be knowing the GARCH test, GARCH LM effect, arch LM test for simple univariate GARCH, the interpretation of that test, and this test is also same. Here p values all are coming to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, which means very less. So my null hypothesis of that GARCH effects are not present is rejected. Okay, so after that I can fit various models, as I showed you, that BEKK model, multivariate BEKK model. For this, the code is very simple, BEKK11. This is the function that it uses. You have to feed your data set there, include.mean. Do you want the mean term to be present in it or not? T means, of course, the mean has to be present or not. So T means true. It depends true. That means whatever function you run, you will get a mean effect in it. And conditional distribution, the distribution of the error term that you are trying to fit is normal. That, and there are many other options here. For instead of normal, you can put some other options also here, and you can fit the model. Okay, so when I run this model, it will take time. Okay, it will take some time to run because it will go through nonlinear optimizations. So as I shown, the equation is very complex, so it will take some time. So while we get our output, so if anybody has some doubt in the code, whatever I have shown to you all can ask me. Once the results are given, I'll interpret them also. But before the results are, the algorithm runs, because you can see stop sign here means the algorithm is running. So they have taken some initial estimates. So these are nonlinear, optimization algorithms where initial values are fed in, and then it starts finding the most possible outcome, the most possible value, which minimizes our likelihood function that is there. Okay, that I was showing to you all, the likelihood, the complex likelihood function. It automatically will minimize and give it to us. So in the meantime, if anybody has some question to ask, please do ask, so that by the time we get our results, we can clarify some of the doubts, if any.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, Avinash, please go ahead.
Sir, we have taken Professor RR and in where we have gone for one differencing, means we have done one lagging sir from
Yeah.
non-stationary to stationary. Suppose initially that
Yes.
RR crop is having stationary itself, sir.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
the another one crop is having non-stationary.
Yes.
So we have to convert by lagging.
Yes.
Is there any effect, sir? Because we will lose one observation there, and there is any effect on the interest by wheat, sorry, RR on wood.
See, your voice is cracking a bit, but what I could understand is you are asking me that if I have one series which is stationary and one series which is non-stationary, fine. So for one series you need to go for differencing, and for other you need not to go for differencing. So will there be any effect in the analysis or not? Is it the question you're asking me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so see, in that case, first of all, so if you difference one series and you are not differencing the other series, the first thing, the first effect is that the problem of dimensionality will come in. The series will not be of equal length. When you don't have equal length series, okay, so you cannot go for running these models. Firstly, fine. And in the second case, so if such situations may arrive, but these are very rare, that when you take variables of the same type price, or different markets or different production, if they are logically, or if they have some economic theory behind them, which are driving these two variables, there are very rare situations when these things can occur. But this condition can occur that one variable is stationary and the other is not. But even if it occurs, so what we can do is, when we difference, we need to to make the series equal length, we need to eradicate one particular observation. And when we fit the model, we need to be very careful while interpreting the model, because one series has been differenced and one has not been differenced. Okay, so the different series has to be backed, okay, back to get these original values, whereas the other series which is not difference can be interpreted as it is. Okay, so
Thank you.
the two things are to be kept into mind. One is that the dimension has to be the same, so you have to take care of that. And secondly, you have to be cautious while interpreting, because one has been differenced, one has not been differenced. Okay, so the coefficients that you get out of it cannot be interpreted equally, so you have to be very much cautious about it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. So if there are no questions, so we have got our results. So the results that we get from BEKK model, the simplest expansion of the model, where I was showing to you that there will be the constants term, these two constant for X and for Y, and these are the values that I get. This A represents the arch effect. Okay, arch values. A11 means for the first model itself. A22 means the second series itself, the arch effect of the second series. A21 and A12 are the cross products of arch effect. And B11 is the Garch effect, the Garch parameter that is present in the model. And B22 is the Garch parameter that is present in the model for the second series. B21 and B12 are again the cross. So these are the dynamic components that we get out of it. So basically this B12 and B21 and again A12 and A21 in terms of explaining, we said to be the volatility spillover, the spillover effect. That is the how much effect of the fluctuation of prices, the volatility of the prices fluctuation from one series is being transformed into the other series. Okay. So here you can see the sum of the coefficients that I have that has been estimated out of this are statistically not significant. So we cannot go ahead for interpreting of these results. Of course you can interpret them. But we cannot have the validity of it. So which this result, this estimates clearly shows that these are this model has not properly estimated the coefficients that are present. Okay, so we need to improve upon the model, and we need to explore the other things that is you can this here the distribution needs to be changed firstly, and we have to see whether the normal errors are not fitting the other options of error. T distributed generalized error distributions are there. That is one way of looking into it. And the other way of is that even if everything is going okay, after trying all these things, we are not getting significant estimates of the model. So the other thing what we can do is that we can shift from this normal way of estimating to Bayesian way of estimating the model. Okay, so in that respect, I would like to say that there is a package called Bayes BKK in R, which has been developed by me and Jha sir together. It was out of my PhD thesis where this particular data set was used, and we have tried all possible combinations of the data sets of the models that could be done, but we could not get any good estimates because this data set had some properties which were not being at tune, at par with the strict assumptions of estimating using this MLE techniques and all. So we had to shift to Bayesian. So this R package Bayesian BKK is available in CRAN. You download it and you can use it, and you can see that the estimates that you get out of those packages. Okay, it is up to you, but still, if you have some other data set where you can get results, you can use this code as it is, and you can change the distributions and see. Okay. And the second code out here is for this is for TCC model. Okay, that is because CCC model, constant conditional, that model is because itself is a constant over time, so it does not have much meaning into it. So we will be going with this DCC model, and in DCC model you can see I will like to explain a bit here so that things become a bit clear to you all. Okay. So you can see first is that I have to give a specification of GARCH, because as I said, the main specification of GARCH remains the same. So here mean model I have given is ARMA. I have to consider univariate series ARMA 1, 0. Okay, so AR process only. So variance model I have given GARCH. See list GARCH order GARCH 1, 1 means ARCH 1 coefficient and GARCH coefficient 1. Model is S means standard GARCH, the simple standard GARCH model, and distribution norm means the normal. The error distribution what I am doing is normal error distribution. Now for DCC, as because I have more than one variable, I have two series to be done. So I will replicate this total specification twice. Excuse me, because I have two series. So this the entire this entire specification GARCH 11.spec, this entire thing is being replicated twice, and the order of DCC is again 1, 1, arch effect 1, GARCH effect 1. Okay, and the distribution is multivariate norm. Okay, because here you cannot, because this is a multivariate case, so univariate distribution will not work. So I have to give a multivariate distribution. So it is multivariate normal distribution, and others parameters are as per your these things are there. Okay, so excuse me. Okay, L. I have to load a package. It's okay. DCC fit. So, I loaded the package in TS. Just a minute. Yeah. So TCC. So RmGarch. Okay, I have not used the library RmGarch. That was the issue. Sorry for the inconvenience. So if you face such issues, you can simply go to help and type whatever function is not running. So it will give you the source. Okay. Packages. So RmGarch is not there, I guess. So RmGarch package install. Okay. Now RmGarch. I think now should run. Okay, some issues here are here for this package RmGarch are MPFR. So it requires this package itself. I hope now it will run. Okay, yes, it is running, and this will give us the output as well. Okay. So sometimes it happens that you don't load a package and then you don't get a fit out of it. Okay. So this is the DCC Garch fit model. Is it visible? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So you can see here, I have distribution is multivariate normal. The DCC one is 1,1, and number of parameters estimated are 13. Then var, Garch, DCC, all these things are given. Number of series, that is there is 2. Then log likelihood values, number of observations that I've taken, and then the average log likelihood value you need to ignore and then this AIC, Bayesian, and all those things are given, and what is the time required for this computation. Okay, so what is important here is for series X, you can see here. Okay, for series X, you can see that they have given XX. Okay, so for series X, you can see the constant value, the AR value, AR parameter, the omega parameter, the constant, the alpha parameter 0.25, and the beta, that is B parameter 0.73. And you can see this all are significant. Fine. Similarly, for Y, you can see AR parameter, omega, alpha, beta. Here also we have some problem with alpha, but the beta parameter is significant. And the other one is the joint that I said, DCC A1 means DCC alpha, the dynamic conditional correlation among the alpha parameter of Garch, and dynamic conditional correlation among the beta parameter of Garch. So values are 0.20 and 0.35. Okay, so this is what I was talking about when you get dynamic things. So this dynamic parameter of A1 is 0.20, dynamic parameter B1 is 0.35. So if we dwell further into all this, so we can get a DCC plot also. Okay, so this is the extra information that you get from these models. Apart from, and the interpretation of all these alphas and betas are same as they are interpreted in terms of your univariate Garch model. Okay, so I will stop here. So if you have any